Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hey everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I stream Monday through Friday on YouTube, on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and on Rumble, where we dissect and reverse engineer all aspects of the culture war, but with a heavy emphasis on the woke left, the socialist left. And yes, the sunglasses are back. You know, I got such good feedback about the sunglasses on Friday because I felt like it gave me a little bit of like I'm pretty based to begin with. Like, I don't really give too many F's about anything, but I feel like when I wore the sunglasses on, it was like an extra level of uppity. So we'll continue with the sunglasses for a while. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, guys, we talk about all aspects of the culture war, but with a heavy focus on the far left, the socialist left, the woke left, whatever you want to call them, because they're basically all the same thing. Where we watch their full-form trainings, we watch their full-form presentations, we dissect them, we talk about the language, we reverse engineer every crazy thing that the left is doing in the country. Why did my full name not fill out on my ID? Hang on. I'm not even, you can tell it's a Monday, I'm not even labeled correctly. It's also going to be one of those days where YouTube isn't notifying people that I'm live. I can already see that. There we go. No rumors. Yeah, sometimes I make some weird typos on the internet because my keyboard has this glitchy thing right now with my computer where sometimes it just stops typing the things that I'm typing. I don't know what it is. So you get some fun things like that. Anyway, we've got a lot of orders of business to tend to today. So let me show you what we're going to be watching and get you excited for that. So I was trolling around on the internet, as I am prone to do. And I came across the YouTube channel for the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And there's no description on this video, but I think we can kind of ascertain what they're talking about based on the title alone. Two-Spirit 101, Colonization, and Indigenous Queer Identity. Now, pop quiz for the chat. What does all that mean? If I had spent the last several years training all of you how to be leftist translators, what would you say that title means? Two-Spirit 101, Colonization, and Indigenous Queer Identity. Let me know your answers in the chat. Stony Baloney says, I see today James Lindsay has picked up on some more of Carlin's talking points. James Lindsay is just like, it's almost like James Lindsay may have blocked me on Twitter, but it really is like he's just following me around the internet, picking up all of the talking points that I've been using for the past 3 years. You know, we can't, it's not nice to rub it in someone's face when they show up late to the party. We just have to celebrate the fact that James Lindsay finally got there. He got there years after I did, but he got there, he made it. So let's just celebrate the fact that he's there rather than that it took him way, 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 way longer than me to get there, which is why he blocked me on Twitter, because James Lindsay is afraid of me. James Lindsay knows I'm ahead of him. You know what? Like, I actually think that James Lindsay blocking me on Twitter is one of the best things that's ever happened. That's the God's honest truth. It's good on so many different levels. We can talk about that. Yes, it's almost like we're in the movie Catch Me If You Can, and I'm Leonardo DiCaprio, and I'm always 3 steps ahead of Tom Hanks. But unlike in that movie, I won't be getting caught by James Lindsay. I'm way too far ahead, and he's not in a place to see that yet, but he will eventually. He will. Yep, James Lindsay also blocked bot, one of the best investigators of woke bullshit in the real world on the internet. James Lindsay blocked her too, because James Lindsay doesn't want to know what's going on in the real world. He only wants to read philosophy papers written by dead people. That's okay. James Lindsay is allowed to read his philosophy papers written by dead people and stay years behind us as he does so. Anyway, let's get to some of your answers for the pop quiz about what this means. This is indigiqueer. Yes, Bob. We started talking about indigiqueer a couple weeks ago. It's intersectionality, indigenous, socialist, queer, non-binary socialist. How capitalism denies indigenous trans. I would have said indigenous queer, but I think it's about identifying capitalism through queer theory. Almost. We don't leave out the indigenous factor. The indigenous factor is important. Capitalism and communist Native Americans. Yeah, that's a pretty good guess, actually. Everyone who is colonized by capitalism, well, all indigenous people are perceived to be colonized by capitalism. How capitalism squashes a crucial part of indigenous culture. Indeed. You guys are giving some good answers today. Yeah, you know what we're not going to talk about today, Milo? You know what we're not going to talk about on Martin Luther King Day? How conservatives picked Martin Luther King Day to alienate every Black voter in America. It really is impressive. Conservatives never fail. They never fail to let us down, right? They always pick the worst possible thing to say if they ever want to win an election again. Whatever. Anyway, guys, so that is what we are watching today. It's a little bit of a shorter presentation. It's only about 54 minutes long, but that's all right, because on Mondays we are on a little bit of a time schedule, so we got to keep things moving. I've got some other things to tell you about. Number one, if you have not yet subscribed to my Substack, which is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com, please head over there and do that today. Now, you can subscribe for free, but now is a really great time to decide to support the work I'm doing, because I have just started a funding campaign to be able to go undercover at a leftist gender training in a couple of months. Now, here's the deal, guys. There is an in-person conference that is a gender ideology conference that is happening at a taxpayer-funded institution, and it's happening in person in a couple months. They do not have a virtual option. It looks woke as hell, and I really want to go. And what I would do there is do exactly what I've done at other events where I go undercover. I dress up like them, I play the part, and then I bring my handy dandy recorders with me and I record what they say and do, and I report back to you what they say and do. I promise you guys, I've gotten pretty good at identifying which events are going to be fruitful and which events are not going to be fruitful. Every once in a while, we hit a virtual training that doesn't pan out, but the in-person stuff is always the best, because the in-person stuff is where they say the things to each other that they don't say when people are watching or when cameras are watching. So I want to go to this event and cover it. Now, here's the problem. This is going to cost money. And I'm an independent journalist. I'm 100% funded by you, which means that we have to hit certain funding goals in order for me to be able to do things. So I put up a post today, and I'm going to give you guys the option. If you don't want me going to these events, you don't have to fund it. But if you want to know what's going on inside of these events, the reality is this. I am the only person that I know of on the internet regularly going undercover at leftist training events, whether that be conferences for teachers, whether that be socialist conferences. I am the only person that I know of that is doing this on a regular basis. I'm not talking about a one-off, because I've done this over and over and over again. Okay? And so if you guys want me to keep doing this, then we all need to come together and make sure to fund it, because going to this event is going to cost me about $3,000. And I do try to keep costs down, but there are just realities to this. I need to pay airfare. I need to pay registration. I need to pay for a hotel. I need to pay for a rental car. I need to pay for food. I need to pay for time away doing other things. Okay. And so I do try to keep the costs as low as I can possibly can. I'm not staying in any fancy schmancy places or anything like that, sadly. But I do need your help in funding it. So I played a game called Fun with Math. And here's the deal. On my Actively Unwoke Substack, you have several options with which you can support my work. You can sign up as a founding member for $240 a year. That I would only need 13 people to do that in order to fully fund this project. You can sign up for an annual membership for $80 a year, which would require about 38 people signing up in order to fully fund this. You can sign up for a monthly membership for $8 a month. Now, if you stay subscribed for 3 months, then I'll only need 125 people to do that. You can make gift donations. You can donate subscriptions. You can also, if you don't want to do any of those and you just want to make a one-time gift, go over to my main website, which is activelyunwoke.com, go to the support section, and you can make a one-time gift of any amount that you would like. And there are some other options there as well if you want to do those. But I would really like to try to fund this through the Substack if we can. But I do need your help to do it. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, the holidays suck every single year, because the holidays are a time where people have to cut back on their subscriptions. They have to cut back on what they're spending. I totally get it, by the way. I really, really do. I totally get it. But the fact of the matter is I made a goal for December that we didn't come close to hitting. And the reason and the consequence of not hitting the December funding goal is that I wasn't able to go to a conference that is literally happening right now and cover it, because we were so far off the goal, it wasn't even close. Now, it's December. You have to make some allowances for that. I'm not blaming anyone, but what I am trying to get people to realize is that if you want this journalism to keep coming, if you want me to go to these events that literally no one else on the internet is covering, no one else is showing you this stuff, guys. That's hard for me to believe too, but this is the reality in which we find ourselves. I need your help in order to be able to do it. So whether that's signing up for a founding membership on the Substack, an annual membership, getting a monthly subscription, giving gift subscriptions, making a one-time gift, etc., Like, whatever you can do to help me get to that conference, I would really appreciate. Now, I'm giving people 1 month. We have 1 month to meet this goal. And if you meet the goal, then I will go to the conference. If we don't meet the goal, then I will not go to the conference, and that's just going to be the way it goes. And I'm going to try to churn out as much like very, very low cost journalism for you guys as I can. I really am. We're still doing stuff today. I'm going to tell you about another story I just covered in a second. But the best content that we always get is when I go undercover at an event. Sadly, that is also the most expensive content to create. So I need your help in order to be able to get there. I have more than enough subscribers who consume my content on the Substack for free every single day that this should not be a problem. And I really do appreciate it in advance, guys. Now let me show you some of the journalism that you get when I'm focusing in on this stuff. And listen, man, I don't always need to travel places to do journalism. In fact, I've got this new project called the Unwoke Wiki, in which we are sourcing and documenting primary source information to get it all in one place, get it organized into a database. Now, a couple of days ago, me and one of the volunteers that's working on the wiki, and I'm not going to say who, but she knows who she is. And she doesn't want me to say who, by the way. I'm like respecting her wishes. I was talking with one of the volunteers that's working on the wiki, and she told me that there is a publicly funded school for equity in San Francisco. Check this out. This is one of the craziest stories that you're going to see all day. And sadly, this story is going to be outshined by the fact that Charlie Kirk is attacking Martin Luther King on Martin Luther King Day. Because that's just the way the news cycle rolls. Conservatives will never focus on things that are important. They will always focus on nonsense. All right? But check out this story. This story has 3 different levels of crazy. There are 3 levels of crazy, okay? The first level of crazy is that there is a public school in San Francisco, literally in the San Francisco Unified School District, that is a school for equity. It is literally called the June Jordan School for Equity, public taxpayer-funded school. We all know what equity means, don't we? Pop quiz for the chat. What does equity mean in one word? And it begins with M, and I'm going to give you a hint because I want the right answer. I don't want any flowery paragraphs. I want one word. What does equity mean? Begins with M. Go. And of course, Bot has to jump right in and say socialism. But it is Marxism. Equity means Marxism. Equity means Marxism. It means Marxism, Marxism, Marxism. Because equity is all about ending all disparities in outcomes, equality of outcomes. You cannot have equality of outcome without Marxism. This is the definition of Marxism. It is Marxism. It is Marxism. It is Marxism. So there is a school for equity in San Francisco funded by the taxpayer that flat out says on its website that they are teaching a curriculum entirely seeped in social justice. They are teaching social justice in math. They are teaching social justice in science. They are teaching social justice in the humanities, arts, language, special education. Keep that in mind because that special education piece is going to become important in about a minute. Multicultural curriculum, community connections, blah, blah, blah. They have literally infused social justice, which is Marxism, in every single subject in this school on the taxpayer dollar. Now, that's crazy thing number 1. Crazy thing number 2 is apparently this school is so seeped in social justice that it forgot to teach kids how to read and how to do math. And we know that because we found their school accountability report card. In fact, there are 3 years of their school accountability report card that you can download on the Substack and see for yourself. Now, what does that school accountability report card say? Well, it says that in English, 10% of kids are proficient in English in this school. 10%. 10%. And that's in grades 3, 8, and 11. So it's all across the school. Only 10% of these kids know how to read. That's not even the craziest bit. In math, 0%. They have a 0% proficiency rate in math. 77% of the students were tested for their proficiency in math. 0% are proficient. Now, some people are asking about a comparison with other schools. Well, we didn't get that for math and English, but guess what? We did get it for science. I don't know why science is the only one on the accountability report card with a comparison to other schools. But we can see here on this one that when they tested them for science, only 3% of students were proficient, and they have this little extra thing up here where they compared the school proficiency with the district and the state. And it seems like the district that they're in, 40% of students are proficient in science, which isn't anything to write home about in and of itself. To only have 40% of the students in the school district, which is the San Francisco Unified School District, to only have 40% of those kids to be proficient in science is nothing good. But when you compare it with the 3%, 3 of students in this school for equity that are proficient in science, that 40% starts to look a whole lot better, doesn't it? So we've got kids that only 10% of them can read, 0% of them can do math, only 3% of them are proficient in science. But this isn't even the craziest thing. Let's move on to crazy thing number 3. Shall we, of the June Jordan School for Equity. Oh, by the way, 80% graduation rate. I'm sorry, we're not ready to move on yet. Even though only 10% of the student body knows how to read, 80% of them are graduating from the school. How is that exactly? How in the holy hell are you graduating 80% of your students when only 10% of them know how to read? And the average teacher salary in this school is $85,000. There are teachers in this school making upwards of like $105,000 a year. The principals of this school are up at like $130,000, $150,000 a year for 0% of kids being able to do math. 0. Literally, you cannot get any lower proficiency than what this school has. But that's only crazy thing number 2. We're really moving on to crazy thing number 3 now. So for those of you who have been following the news, California's Attorney General has been having a massive hissy fit, and this is an article from yesterday, where there are school districts in California that are saying, we're going to tell parents what gender and pronouns their kids are using. And the California Attorney General is having a massive hissy fit about this, and he's saying it is against student privacy state law for you to tell parents what gender their kids are identifying as. I'm going to say that again. The California Attorney General is threatening public schools who disclose to parents what names and pronouns their kids are using in school, and saying that if schools disclose information about their kids to parents, then that is a violation of the California state constitution. Now, I don't agree with that at all, but let's just play this game for a second. Let's just play this game. If it is a violation for a public school to tell parents what names and pronouns their kids are using in school, then do you guys think that it's a privacy violation for a school to post confidential, IEP student data on their website. IEPs are individual education plans. They're used in special education to make sure that students have the help and support they need to be successful in schools. IEPs are usually some of the most confidential information that exists in the school. So if it's if it's against California law to tell parents what gender their kids are identifying as at school, do you guys think it's against the law for IEPs to be posted publicly by a taxpayer funded school? What do you think? What do you think? Because that is exactly what they're doing. That is exactly what they're doing. The June Jordan School for Equity literally posted student confidential IEP information on their website. And the way that we found it is literally indexed in Google. It's indexed in Google. If you search for the June Jordan School of Equity in Google, you are going to find a page on their website labeled IEPs. If you go to that page, there is a message on there saying, the following links contain our students' personal information. Please be sure to securely close these pages when you're not actively referencing them. This is public on their website. I didn't need no username and password to get this. We literally found this from Googling it. And then if you click on this one or on this one, the 9th grade or the 10th grade, you literally get access to their Google Drives that are owned by the San Francisco Unified School District, where they are posting confidential IEPs. These are the literal IEPs. This should never be made public. This is a big effing no-no. This is such a big effing no-no that not only does it probably violate California State Education Code, it also probably violates FERPA, which is a big effing deal. You violate FERPA, you get a metric ton of funding pulled. So, that is the June Jordan School for Equity, which is something that was only uncovered by my volunteer community when they were working on sourcing information for the Unwoke Wiki. This is the type of journalism that you only see coming out of my Substack and out of my community. No one else is covering this. By the way, I told Chris Rufo about it this morning. He didn't know about this shit. Have you seen him share it yet? He knows about it. He responded to it. He knows what's going on. We'll see if he does anything with it. If you think your conservative influencers are up to speed on this stuff, we are light years ahead of them. We are finding the things that no one else on the internet is finding, and we can only do that with your support. So guys, if you want to see this continue and you want to help send me to go undercover at an event in a couple of months to tell you what's going on, please sign up to support my work on my Substack, Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. All of the profits that I make get reinvested in doing this. I don't have a life. This is all I do. This is all I spend my time doing. You guys are paying for my time. You're paying for my attention. You're paying me to provide you with receipts and to tell you the truth about what's going on and to show you things that no one else on the internet is showing you. All right? So let's keep this party going, guys. I need some funding to go to this undercover event, and I know you can hook me up. I know you can. You can find out more on the Substack right now. Another way you can support the work I'm doing is, of course, to head over to the Unwoke Art store, which is unwokeart.com. This is my merch store, and I have a special surprise because over the weekend, I made this socialist or gay design. And it was supposed to be a joke at first. I was just messing around. And then everyone told me to put it on a t-shirt because it was funny. And it is really funny, honestly. Like, I think that this is effing hilarious. And so now you can buy the special Socialist's Gay design in the Unwoke Art store for 25% off this week only. You can get it on t-shirts, you can get it on sweatshirts, you can get it on hoodies, you can get it on stickers, you can get it on posters, mugs, bags, all that good stuff. And I even did some different colors too. You can get some different colors, not just black this time. Check it out. You can get it in a soft cream, or you can get it in a mustard, I kind of like the mustard one myself. You can get it in an autumn, not to be confused with socialist autumn, more like drab, burnt orange autumn. You can get it in a military green. You can get it in lots of different colors. If you want, of course, we have to have some sense of pride flag, but making it a little bit drab because we want it to look vintage. So that is the latest design in the Unwoke Art Store right now, and you can get it. This is going to be a permanent thing in the store. I don't intend on taking this one down, but you can only get it at 25% off for this week only. All the designs are 25% off, and that discount is automatically taken at the checkout. And of course, all merch purchases purchases in the store do go to support the work I'm doing, and I really appreciate it. We also, for a limited time only, do have the special limited edition Unwoke wiki design. That's going to be leaving the store at the end of the month. And the Steamboat Willie Whiteness Means Capitalism design, that's going to be leaving the store at the end of the month as well. So just a couple weeks left to get those designs if you feel so inclined. All right, guys, with that out of the way, let's get this party started because I have a community supporter call in an hour and a half. And if you want to join that community supporter call, you can head over to the Substack and find yesterday's Unwoke Roundup email for the links where you can join the call with us. But that means we have an hour and a half to watch a 54-minute presentation. Oh, sorry, Rottweiler. I missed a super chat from Rottweiler. I apologize. Sorry. What do you expect from conservatives? Haven't some high-profile conservatives basically said, if you're LGBT, we don't want you to vote for us? They can't help it. Oh, yeah, they don't want libertarians to vote for them either. No problem. Happy not to. They don't want black people to vote for them. They don't want gay people to vote for them. They don't want trans people to vote for them. They don't want women to vote for them. They don't want independents to vote for them. They don't want libertarians to vote for them. They don't want anyone to vote for them. And then they're going to claim election fraud when they inevitably lose in November, which they did to their damn selves by shooting themselves in the foot by telling everyone and their mothers not to vote for them. Brilliant electoral strategy, conservatives. Just brilliant. Just brilliant. They only want white Christian social conservatives to vote for them, which is less than 30% of the country. Conservatives working hard for 30% of the vote. Working hard, working hard, working hard. Well, I guess at least we have something to make fun of, right? I guess. All right, guys, let's dig into this presentation. We are watching a presentation today from the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families. That means it's a taxpayer-funded presentation. This is from just a couple months ago. This was on November 13th, 2023, so almost exactly 2 months ago. It has 43 views. You guys know how much I love it when we find presentations that have no views on YouTube. Nothing gets me off more. And so, guys, please do make sure to mount that like button for me. There is still a shocking disparity between the number of people watching right now and the number of people who have mounted that like button for me. And I want to do a special shout out to everyone watching on Rumble. Please make sure you guys are subscribed over there. Please make sure you guys are subscribed on YouTube if you would like to be. Let's get this party started, guys. Let's see what they had to say.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us for our 2:00 session on Two-Spirit 101, Colonization and Indigenous Queer Identity. I'd love to welcome Jack to our conference here. And Jack is sorry, my email's going crazy here. My apologies. Jack is a Two-Spirit and Indigenous adoptee from Portland, Oregon. They are an advocate for queer Indigenous rights and support for Indigenous adoptees reconnecting with their culture and building community. I believe in 2020 or 2021, Jack presented at one of our first ICYF conferences. And so I'm so excited to welcome them back to present. And I also want to just give them a huge shout out because they are not feeling the best and still was committed to being here and presenting to our conference. So thank you so much. Welcome. And I will let you have the floor.
Tiktash and Ninyak Chugig, Jack Malmstrom. Hello, my name is Jack Malmstrom. I apologize for how I sound. I will periodically be taking some sips of a beverage to keep talking.
Jack. Name
But
Jack.
yeah, welcome.
Definitely looks like a
Thank you,
Jack.
everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. All right. Now, if everything goes right, we'll be watching a quick video to
Jack.
to kind of introduce
Does anyone
you
know a
to
Jack that looks like that?
how this all works. So this is Two Spirit
There damn well
101.
better be a land
I've
acknowledgement.
been doing this presentation for tribal communities and social child welfare services for a few years now.
Oh, good.
Some of it may be stuff you already know. Some of this stuff maybe you're just hearing for the first time. So I hope everyone finds this useful. So we're gonna get started. See if it'll let me. There we go. All right. We're gonna try watch this video. Hopefully the sound works. If you can't hear it, let me know and I'll tweak some things.
Jack, I can't hear anything.
Okay. Let
You
me
might have to reshare and then choose to share with audio. There's like a little checkbox.
Socialists suck at
there
technology.
we go. Got it. Okay, let me rewind that.
Major funding for Ingenuity was provided by the Corporation for Public
Perfect.
This is a good point, Jason. Maybe a land acknowledgement is only for presenters who aren't indigenous. I still can't hear any sound. They still haven't fixed it. Hopefully there's no sound. Or it starts somewhere. I don't know. Can they hear sound and we just can't? Or are they lying to this person to not offend? Oh, here it is. Okay. Do we need to be on acid for this? Oh God.
Gay and lesbian,
What the fuck?
bisexual, transgender. It feels like they're all boxes and categories that you have to fit into, and they can't change.
What is going on?
Being Two-Spirit, it felt more natural to me. It felt like it acknowledged more than the surface of somebody's identity. I feel like it encompasses also a way of carrying yourself.
Are we on acid?
What was
I'm honestly asking.
before colonization is this practice of passing on of stories that allowed for people to learn about each other, to appreciate each other, and to live in a way that everyone felt like they were safe and belonged.
For me personally, I wasn't loud and proud. I was very subdued about it. I never really came out until
this is like what it's like to be on. If you've never been on
But when I
mushrooms
came
before,
back,
this is what it feels like.
I'm okay with myself.
I'm not joking.
At one point, gay and lesbians were
What the fuck?
revered in Navajo culture. It's just that the influence of Christianity really skewed that view of homosexuality.
Wait, what? What? Hang on. The influence of Christianity, and then you've got like the preacher with the giant. We're on what the hell? We're on acid right now. This can't be real. This is a taxpayer-funded training. Let's just watch that last part again.
At one point, gay and lesbians were revered in Navajo culture. It's just that the influence of Christianity really skewed that view of homosexuality, the sacredness.
Growing up here in the Bay Area, I saw other LGBT kids and I couldn't relate to them, or like I wanted to, but I didn't know how. But when I started going to native boarding schools and I saw Two Spirits, and I was like, yeah, okay, I get it now. That's where I belong. That's my place. So I started to come out I didn't know that I could be an athlete. I didn't know I could be an intellectual. I didn't know that I could embrace all the good things that I knew about me. So my confidence level, it just started to peak.
Young people who are just exploring who they are, I want you to remember that there are some tribes out there that didn't even call you a specific gender until you decided what that is. I want you to know that you're empowered and that anything that you may go through, you can overcome. You have the strength, and that you're valuable and you belong here.
We're on drugs right now. All right, I'm just gonna pause there. I think we all need a moment to come down from whatever trip we were just on. How does everyone feel about what we just watched? Remember, this is a taxpayer-funded training by the Washington Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Thank you, taxpayers of Washington State, for making this possible. How's everyone feeling right now? Bot feels weird. Yeah, I agree. Reagan doesn't know how to feel. Gloria feels hurt in her soul. Yeah, there were pretty colors. That's what happens when you trip. Yeah, that's if I got to tell you, man, like if you guys have never done mushrooms, like that was a really good introduction to what it's like to be on mushrooms, and I'm not even exaggerating what I said. Not to be rude, but the mental health crisis in America is real. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What Bot says. Yeah, I feel high too. Yep. Well, the sunflowers were very nice, Sin. It was like running through a field of sunflowers to find our true two-spirit self. Feeling groovy. Mr. Nobody feels gay. Lady Harley over on Rumble is peaking right now. Yep, we just went back to the 60s. That was weird. Yep. Yeah, everyone go get a bag of chips or something. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Everyone get a bag of chips. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I just don't know how we can possibly top that amazing introduction, but let's continue with this very important and serious and absolutely professional training done by the Washington State Department for Children, Youth, and Families. Shall we? Let's keep going.
For more information about Ingenuity and other ITVS programs, visit ITVS at itvs.org.
Okay, so that was a lovely
Echo!
video on Two-Spirit Identity
Echo!
by the animation project Ingenuity.
Maybe she's trying to stay more dreamy. She's trying to stay
recommend
dreamy.
checking them out on YouTube. It's a lot of great indigenous-made animations about culture, identity, and all sorts of things it means to be native.
Yeah, she's trying to make us think we're still high.
Major funding for Ingenuity was provided.
There we go. So I'm going to attempt. There.
Maybe she just leave the echo on the whole presentation.
So young people have the right to be empowered, educated, and giving a decision-making role in their care of their own lives, as well as yes.
I'm so sorry. There's an echo.
Oh
when
no,
you're
they
talking.
told her. Oh no.
Let me see if I can fix that. Sorry.
They told her. I'm sorry, her name is Jack, so they told they.
Just a second.
I don't know that we've ever discussed their pronoun. They, them. Pronouns they, them. Apologize. No misgendering allowed. They told they that they were echoing. Yes.
Yeah, a little bit. Oh, somebody wrote, I wonder if you stop sharing and then uncheck that box.
Yeah, that's probably a good call. Yeah, that's a good call.
That'll work.
Socialists suck at technology. Definitely looks like a they, them named Jack, doesn't it? I'm just continuing to I mean, it's like impressive that they got their hair that red, though. I've tried to get my hair that red. It's not easy to get your hair that red, especially when it's that dark. So you gotta give credit where credit is due. They, them did a great job on that red hair dye.
How about now?
Perfect.
Great. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So youth have the right to be empowered and
I
educated about
should
any
dye my
decisions
hair like that for the
being
next
made in their
Undercover.
own
I should,
lives, just like the
absolutely.
rest of us.
Yep.
Um, they
Mhm.
need to be involved in the policies and procedures that are governing the care for all youth in the community, the state, and the nation. This includes giving young people a sustainable voice, and the focus should be towards creating a safe environment and enabling a young person to gain self sustainability in accordance with their culture and beliefs. Through the eyes of a youth guided approach, we are aware that there's a continuum of power and choice that young people should have based on their understanding and maturity in this strength based change process. Youth guided also means that this process would be fun and worthwhile. That's basically like at its core how I've approached youth work over the years. I used to be the youth engagement specialist at the National Indian Child Welfare
Oh,
Association.
good.
I've also done local youth work here in Portland for the Native American Youth and Family Center. So, in approaching this, we want to approach youth and anybody else we work with as an equal. They are sentient beings who deserve a right to have a say in how and what impacts their life. So it's important to make sure that they are also kept on board and informed of the processes so they can have a better understanding, which also helps them learn to advocate for themselves when they need. Oh, there we go. So, some historical context. The term Two Spirit was adopted by Native people in the early 1990s in a gathering in Canada. It's being used as an umbrella term for the alternative to Western labels, gay, straight, bi. Um, the other part of it, though, is that Two Spirit isn't just a identity label. Two Spirit is a cultural role. So, and we'll get into a little bit more about what that means, but it's not just a label.
Hang on, hang on. Got a super chat from my friend broker Natalie. Good to see you again, Natalie. I love you, Carlin. I don't know how you do the work you do. It's so creepy, but I thank God for you. Thank you, Natalie. I appreciate you as well.
It is a cultural identity that is and can be specific to one's tribe, specific tribal culture. Um, LGBTQ Two Spirit Native people throughout North America are reviving the Two Spirit roles and its traditions. They are becoming more prominent in local community events, powwows, cultural events. I know up here in Portland, we have powwow royalty that is also openly Two Spirit, which is a newer thing in our community. But there is more representation being shown at these events and these gatherings. There are also now national and regional Two Spirit gatherings. Two Spirit societies and powwows continue to grow. Two Spirit organizations have begun to have more of a presence in regular, well, not regular, but in gay pride parades and non indigenous queer.
Why do we freeze? Why do we freeze? What's going on? Oh, we're back.
Celebrations. And they are starting to make their presence known in the non-native world as well, that we exist and we have been here since long before uh, any other people or things were here. Two Spirit, since the beginning, Two Spirit movement scholarship into traditional identity has always been a goal. A lot of the time, back in the early
Yeah,
90s
I
and
have this
even
question too, Barbie. Why is
probably in
she
the last
whispering?
decade or two.
What's going on?
A lot of what we had to
Should we
go
all be
on was
whispering?
from a colonist perspective, and I will go into that in this next slide. But things are on the up. So the flag you see on the top here, that is the original Two Spirit flag that was made in the 1990s, and then now the Two Spirit Pride flag has, excuse me, has evolved into the flag on the bottom currently. So these are the Two Spirit Pride flags that we have at the moment. So some historical context. So a majority of tribes recognize third or fourth genders within their culture and communities. Not all tribes are the same, of course. They're not all a monolith, so it can vary of they recognize third and fourth genders, or they don't
Okay.
have gender roles
Does
at all.
hang on. Does everyone know what two spirit means? Does everyone have a good understanding of what two? I made an assumption that everyone knew what two spirit means, and I think we were so distracted by the acid trip that we were served at the beginning of this presentation. People may not have been listening to the definition of what two spirit is. Yeah, two spirit basically means non-binary. It means that you are outside of the gender binary of men and women. It is an indigenous non-binary. It's something that they're really pushing to because it has extra two spirit has extra virtue points because you can only identify as two spirit if you are Native American. Although they really fudge that. They do the whole like Elizabeth Warren thing. If you're like 1/1000th of a Native American, then you still get to identify as two spirit because like two spirit has extra virtue points because it's indigenous, and indigenous is the opposite of capitalism because indigenous cultures were collectivized and then the evil capitalists came in and they privatized everything, and they oppressed the indigenous people under the oppressive force of capitalism by privatizing their land. And so it's like an extra special virtue signal. Yeah, it's like queer for Native Americans, but only for Native Americans. Exactly. It's non-binary. Okay. So they're explaining. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was on the same page.
All everything is equal, and so the recognition of that isn't necessarily as intense or really needed in the way their culture operates. Uh, for roles that we were given, we were often name givers, medicine people, mediators, adoptive parents, storytellers, uh, warriors, keeper of oral knowledge, all kinds of things. We've held a prominent role in our communities, and continue to. I personally have met so many Two Spirit people in youth work and the child welfare system and work. And, a lot of us are nurses. Like, we always come from a very caregiving place, and it is a role that we have filled for centuries. Um, in some tribal cultures, two spirits are viewed as being blessed with a masculine and a feminine spirit in one body. So they are able to see the in between and to mediate between cisgender folks. And again, this isn't every culture that believes we have literally.
By the way, this is a complete bastardization of what people actually believe. I hope people understand that. Like what people like that adhere to more like spiritualist beliefs believe essentially is that we are all a blend of masculine and feminine energies. This is what I believe. I know other people in the chat believe this as well, and this is really kind of like the root of what they're talking about. But what the queer Marxists have again done is taken something that's actually nice and balanced and nuanced, and they've taken it and they've twisted it to be used towards queer advocacy. This is just about like the yin and the yang, believing that everyone is a balance of all aspects. We all have masculinity, we all have femininity, we all have some avenues in which we are more masculine, we all have some avenues in which we are more feminine. That has nothing to do with what's between your legs. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're a man or a woman. That is just like the natural balance of life. And if you go too much in one direction, you're going to like life is going to have a way of pulling you back in the other direction in order to find balance. The goal is always to have that nice, beautiful balance of all your energies. But that does not mean that you are not a man or a woman. That does not mean that you are outside of the binary. It just means that you are balancing innate masculine and feminine energies.
Two spirits, but that's kind of where the idea of the name Two Spirit comes from. The Dene, the Navajo, have a story of man and woman fighting and separating, and it is a two spirit person, a Natle, that goes back and forth and has to mediate for everyone to come back together. And there was some respect in being able to have a person who can see that full 360 view. So that was honored and revered in many communities. On the right here, we have a picture of Wewa, who is a very famous Zuni two-spirit woman. She was very prominent in the early
Two-spirit
1900s,
woman.
even got to meet the president. Seen more as a bit of a novelty, but also uh, held with some respect. And she did tours and things like that. She was fairly well known until there was more talk about how Wewa wasn't a woman um, in their eyes, and then it became a source of scandal and kind of blew up on its own. But Wiwa is one of our earliest examples that we have of, especially after colonization, of two spirit representation. But again, it is through any documentation we have, really, for the most part, is through a colonizer lens, a secondhand telling of this person's story.
A colonizer lens means a capitalist lens. It means the people who came and oppressed the indigenous people and privatized their land under the oppressive force of capitalism.
So after colonization, there's a lot to go over. So starting with kill the Indian and save the man. And this is the era of boarding schools, the Civilization Fund Act of 1819, and the Indian Relocation Act of 1956. So a big goal with colonization, right, is to disconnect, to spread us out, and to take over the communities. So the idea of kill the Indian and save the man and boarding schools in general were, if we get rid of their savage culture, they can be useful in a service role at the most. Like, we'll try to whitewash them as best we can, but we can only do so much. So let's take them out of their culture. Let's raise them in a Christian environment, and teach them to be maids, housekeepers. We'll teach the men physical labor, manual labor, things of that nature, and make them useful citizens to society. So, with the Civilization Fund Act of 1819, this was funding that was given to benevolent societies to assist with the education and civilization process of Indigenous people. Now, benevolent societies is a combination of Christian missions and the federal government making a deal. And at this time, a lot of missions were being built on reservations and Indian territory. And the tactic for this, in early days and on, was they would come to the communities and, see who was the leader, see who was most respected. They would go to the person who seems to be in charge and say, "You're going to help us convert your entire tribe. And if you don't, you can do this the easy way or the hard way. If you help us, then we can give you food, medicine, support, whatever it is, the supplies you need because you need it. If you don't help us, we can make an example out of you." And oftentimes that example was murder. A lot of Two Spirit folks were murdered in this process because, with colonization and Christianity, Christianity brings the gender binary. Homophobia is a learned
Christianity,
behavior
hang on.
and is a
So I'm gonna say this. So we very rarely hear these people talk about Christianity. Like very like I mean like maybe like once a year or something like that. It's extremely rare. So this is already like the most I've heard one of these people talk about Christianity in a while, which I think is interesting that it's coming in the indigenous two-spirit presentation. It's not to say no. Well, actually, no. I'm going to take that back. We do occasionally watch queer theology in which they talk about Christianity, but it's not really. It's more talking about Christianity in them trying to co-opt the church as like a political movement, so it's a little bit different than this. But this is like actually the first time where I've heard a socialist say like Christianity is created the gender binary. Of course, by Christianity she means capitalist. She means like it was created by whiteness, like it was created by people who own the power structure and stuff like that. I just want to make that note just to keep myself honest that like I make a point to tell people that I don't actually think socialists are trying to attack Christianity and abolish Christianity. I think they're trying to co-opt Christianity to use it for their own purpose. I think the Pope is a great example of this. The Pope just the other day announced that Marxists have a lot in common with Christians. I was like, "Ah, great, bro." Saying the quiet part out loud again. The Groypers don't want to accept that the Catholic Church is about to get completely queered. Like every indication is that that church is getting queered. But anyway, my point is that I'm acknowledging that this person is talking badly about Christianity while at the same time noting that this is actually something we very rarely hear, and I just think it's interesting. Let's go back to listen to her say that Christianity with colonization created the gender binary, which really means capitalism created the gender binary, but she's framing it in terms of Christianity.
This process because with colonization and Christianity, Christianity brings the gender binary. Homophobia is a learned behavior and is a colonized behavior. Homophobia is not traditional in our communities. It is something I really try to drive home when I work with other tribal clients. That is not our way. With colonization came the gender binary, gender roles, and a lot
See,
of
See,
cultural.
see, with colonization came the gender binary. Colonization means the privatization of previously collectivized property. Indigenous property, indigenous land was seen as part of the collective of the tribe. The evil colonizers or the evil capitalists who believe in private property ownership came in and colonize the land by taking it from the indigenous people and making it private under their ownership. That's what colonization means. And they're saying that colonization, which is really a reference to capitalism, created the gender binary because it created oppressive gender roles that put women in the home, men out in the workplace, where they control the money, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what we hear all the time from these people is that they believe capitalism, which is private property ownership, created the gender binary. Rottweiler, thank you for the super chat. I've heard Marxists speak about decolonizing Christianity. That's where liberation theology comes in to co-opt it. Pope Francis is an example. Yeah, so that's what I mean when I say that most of the time when we hear them talk about Christianity, they're talking about how do we co-opt the church to use it as a political organizing force, or how do we co-opt it to decolonize it? That's another way that you could look at that. And then he says Pope Francis is a liberation theologian. Liberation, of course, means to free yourself from the oppressive force of capitalism.
A cultural chokehold, if you will. So a lot of Two-Spirit folks, when they were also sent to boarding schools, would either be killed or would have it physically beaten out of them and forced into these gender roles that came with it. So with the Civilization Fund Act, this also developed and was the beginning of Indian boarding schools, which were run by the church. And so the goal was you get them young enough, you take the children away because the adults, it's harder to convert adults, it's harder to change their ways. But if you get them young enough and separate them, then it's much easier to get them to go with the program that you want. So oftentimes children, very young children, like pictured here and even younger, were taken away from their parents, sometimes forcibly by the government, and taken to boarding schools, you know, multiple states over, sometimes as far away as they could, because in the early days they had children running away and coming back to their communities. So they decided, okay, we really need to send them away. So they would be completely separated from the land they knew, the family they knew, and raised in these boarding schools. And then when they come back as young adults, they don't speak the language that their parents speak. Sometimes their parents do not speak English at all, and they only speak English. So it also brought back a lot of disconnect and even trying to reconnect with the community you come from. And all you know is this way that you were raised in these boarding schools and these certain skills that you have that might get you a leg up in the way the situation is right now and in society. So a lot of people end up not coming back to the reservation and coming back to their communities because they have no ties and they have no connection anymore that has been forcibly severed from a young age. The Indian Relocation Act of 1956 was also another attempt to remove Indigenous people from their cultural lands and their communities. So this was under the guise of, they said, hey, look, we get it. There's not a
Listen,
lot of
man, listen.
opportunities where you are, right?
For people saying, like, so people are talking about, like, the Pope and how the Pope is an obvious Marxist and is a liberation theologian, and the Catholic Church is going to get queered, and he's moving it ever so close. Like, every single time the Pope does something crazy, I hear from Catholics, they're like, no, 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 Carlin, you don't understand. He's still keeping the church the same. You don't understand. It's just because you don't understand the church. I'm like, your Pope is literally blessing trans people. And I don't care if people are trans, by the way. It makes no difference to me at all. I'm talking about in context of the church. And it's like, your Pope's doing this, your Pope's doing that. Your Pope literally made an announcement saying that Marxists and Christians have a lot in common. You guys are getting queered and you don't even know it and you don't even want to acknowledge it. And so every single time this happens, I have a whole bunch of groypers in my feed saying, Carlin, you just don't understand. You don't understand the church. You don't. And by the way, most groypers don't even go to church. And so I don't know how they became the experts in Catholicism all of a sudden just because they follow Nick Fuentes. But even for like normal Catholics who don't follow Nick around, like, you know, on his every word or whatever, it's like they really don't think. And it's like, you know, you're scared for Catholics. Catholics are doing this to them damn selves. This is what I keep trying to tell people, man. Don't be afraid for the Catholics. The Catholics are doing this to themselves. The Catholics, because they are waiting for God to intervene and save them, are doing this to themselves. They are watching their church be queered right in front of them. It's obvious what's happening to anyone paying attention. The Catholic Church is one of the last institutions in the world that these people did not have a foothold in. And now they've got that Pope that's slowly and surely moving everything in that direction and has been for a really long time. And every single time the Pope does something crazy, I get a bow tie of Catholics saying, you just don't understand, Carlin. You don't understand. You just don't understand. That's why you think this is bad. You just don't understand. This is God's divine plan. Well, you're doing it to yourself. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to fix this for you. If you are insistent on not, and I understand the Pope is the leader of your holy order, and it's a little like it's not kosher to question anything the man says, but your Pope is also a Marxist. And so maybe now is the time for just a little bit of reflection on the future of your institution. And if the Catholics aren't willing to do that, then they get what they effing get, man. They get what they get. Their church is going to turn into the United Church of Christ, basically. Or like, what are some of those other crazy churches? What are some like the Unitarians or something like that? Like, you know, I don't feel bad for them. They know what's coming. They don't listen. You get what you get.
Right. Well, we have funding. We can send you up to the big city. We'll set you up with housing, a job, like all of these connections. You'll be good.
Oh,
And then
great. We're
you
going to
can
war.
you
That's
can
awesome.
find
Great.
your career or whatever in the big city. It'll be great. And, it was attempting to get the numbers of indigenous people lower on the reservation so they could attempt to take more land at the time. So a lot of the time,
See, they could
though,
attempt to take more
these
land.
indigenous families would be uprooted and moved and relocated and find that there was no support. And they would often be stranded in these cities. And sometimes they would end up without a job, without a community, no support. You're in a very white city. You don't have the money to move back. So you're just kind of stuck there. And a lot of families ended up that way, and had to go through quite a bit just to either get back to their communities or find a way to survive. But this was more relocation, not instead of just moving like the Trail of Tears or mass moving, this was a way to try and incentivize indigenous folks to leave their lands and to assimilate into the wider culture, but very little support was given to these families um, to do that. So, going into forced conversion and religious indoctrination, we did talk about this a bit, placing children in boarding schools or mission schools, again, at a very young age. I'm talking like toddler age. Punishments for those practicing native traditions or speaking native languages, and physical abuse is rampant in these schools. Was rampant, is rampant. That place was a hell. If you were caught speaking your native language, you were beat. If you were singing in your songs, you were beat. Anything that represented savage behavior was beaten out of you, was starved out of you. Um, these places were very much ruled with an iron fist. And so it also kind of connects any association with your culture and creates a trauma connection to it, because anytime you invoke these things came physical, verbal abuse. So the fear to even touch those things can be a very rare, a very real fear. um, again, the specific targeting of medicine people and community leaders in order to get the community to do what they want and to go with the program. And again, with colonization comes the gender binary. So,
With
with that,
colonization
also
comes the
during
gender
the
binary.
first contact, one of the early terms for Two Spirit people was birdash, which is actually a derogatory term. It comes from the French language and basically translated to like boy child prostitute. The way that both the Spanish and the European settlers viewed Two-Spirit people was from a very distorted lens, and they didn't really seem to try to understand what was really happening here. So it comes from a very biased lens, and in their eyes, it was unnatural. It was, again, savage. It was beastly. It was something that, proves that these people really need to find God and need to, you know, abandon their terrible ways in order to be productive members of society in their eyes. Um, so, with all of this comes historical and intergenerational trauma. So the effects of that are homophobia, substance abuse, suicide, internalized depression, and domestic violence. These are all things that we see in our communities as a result of, uh, you know, systematic oppression of your people and culture. And the internalized oppression can really be a big part of that, where we don't talk about, grandma and grandpa, aunts and uncles don't talk about what happened in the boarding schools. They don't want to. We don't talk about hard situation. We know cousin Ray might be a little off, but we don't talk about that. we just try and ignore it, sweep it under the rug because that's how we've been taught. And these toxic coping behaviors and mechanisms are passed down generationally, even to the generations who didn't go to boarding school. I myself did not go to boarding school. And while I was not raised with my family, I have other siblings and cousins who
Obviously,
did not go to
Caitlin.
boarding school, but
Obviously.
had these attitudes passed on through my grandparents, my aunts and uncles who did go to boarding school. So there is a lot of harm and hurt in our communities as a result of this historical and intergenerational trauma. And with the internalized oppression also comes internalized homophobia. Um, we see very high suicide rates in our tribal communities of LGBTQ youth specifically. They are a
What are the
large
rates?
chunk
What are the
of the youth
rates?
suicide rate in our tribal
Where's the
communities
data?
because
What are the
of the
rates?
lack of family acceptance and the fear
I
and
want
oftentimes
receipts.
self-hatred that comes with trying to
Not
find
trust
your
me,
own
bro.
identity and understanding what those things mean.
No
Let's see,
data, of
get my
course.
mouse to work. There.
No data.
All right.
No receipts.
So, the risks of this.
Oh, here we go.
20 to 40% of all homeless youth identify as LGBTQ.
This is not specific to
65% of
them.
the 400 homeless LGBTQ youth reported having been in child welfare placement at some point in the past. 63.5 of students reported feeling unsafe at school because of their sexual orientation, while 43.9 felt unsafe because of their gender expression.
Hang on. I want to point out that these statistics are not related to each other, but they're being presented as being related to each other. Okay, so 20 to 40% of homeless youth identify as LGBTQ. That's actually in line right now with the overall population. That's not disproportional to what we're seeing in schools. And so it's being presented as people who are homeless are like disproportionately more likely to identify as LGBTQ. That's not true. That's not true now. Youth are identifying as LGBTQ with a heavy emphasis on the Q between 20 and 40%. So you've given me something that's like reflective of the general population. Number two, 65% of 400 homeless LGBTQ youth report having been in child welfare. Well, is anyone surprised that a homeless youth has been in child welfare? Like, I'm surprised that number is not higher, but that number has nothing to do with them being LGBTQ. That number has to do with them being homeless. If you are a homeless youth, then I would say there's probably a pretty high percentage likelihood that you've been in child welfare placement at some point, and that does not have to do with you being gay, because I bet there's a lot of straight kids that were homeless that were also in child welfare. But that last one is the one where she's trying to be, I'm sorry, them is trying to be tricky. 63.5% of LGBTQ students reported feeling unsafe at school. That is not related to the homeless youth question, and it's like that last statistic is not related to anything else. It's being paired with these things to make you think there's a correlation when in fact that doesn't necessarily exist, because those are two completely unrelated statistics. Does everyone understand the games the they them is playing? And by the way, they them didn't present any data to support their last point before this, which is a large chunk of Native American Two-Spirit people will try to kill themselves. No data on that. But then we have this other data that's being presented out of context to make it seem like something it's not. And this is all being paid for by the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Does everyone understand? This is emotional manipulation, what they're doing. Taxpayer-funded emotional manipulation.
2015. Oftentimes we do see queer youth being a large chunk of the child welfare system. Again, this is due to family acceptance, homophobia, And even oftentimes when they are in shelters, shelters also have a reputation of not being completely safe for trans people or for queer people. And so it can be a very turbulent time of finding a place to be your own, a safe place. And oftentimes our youth are kicked out at a very young age, or just do not have a safe environment to really put roots down and have stability. So, in the first ever study looking at the rates of violence and the outcomes against LGBTQ Two Spirit Indian and Alaska Native women, found that 85% have experienced sexual assault and 78% were survivors of physical assault. Of these survivors, 70% reported being sexually assaulted by someone they knew, 63% said by a stranger, and 53% said by both. 38% of these relatives have experienced both sexual and physical assault by strangers and people they knew. Abuse often began in childhood, with 76% reporting they were 18 years or younger and assaulted by someone 5 years or older. The authors have cited other alarming statistics, finding that 1/3 of Two Spirit men in Canada have been gay bashed. In the US, 45% of gay, bisexual, and Two Spirit men often reported sexual or physical assault by someone other than a partner, versus only 2% of straight and cis Native men. In a study by the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force in 2011, 46% of Two Spirit people reported being rejected by family, and 45% suffered family violence. Homelessness is a common issue for Native and transgender people, as well as experiencing discriminations in shelters. 55% reported being harassed by shelter staff, 29% were turned away, and 22 were sexually assaulted by residents or staff. This comes from Centering and Working for Wellness for Two Spirit Women in the Two Spirit Journal. Oftentimes, again, homophobia runs rampant within these systems that are supposed to help us. Homophobia and transphobia can run rampant in these spaces. And again, with family rejection comes violence and comes creating an unsafe space for them to be in. So oftentimes they will leave home. Oftentimes they will be kicked out and end up homeless and not really having a way to go. And in the attempts of finding shelters, there are also times where they are turned away for being who they are. And that can also create more risks, and they're seen as easy targets. Again, men and women and Two Spirit relatives also are at risk if they are more, I hate to use this term, but if they are more visibly queer, if they do not look the way that society thinks they should look, they are also more at risk for physical violence from strangers and gay bashing. We have been seeing this continuously in the news with our trans relatives of, if you do not look a certain way, if you do not pass a certain stranger's look test, then you are open to very real violence, and sometimes that violence ends in murder. Family acceptance is very huge. So many parents can feel conflicted when they learn that their child is queer. They're unsure of how to react. They may feel disappointed, concerned, and just don't know how to help their child. They may respond cautiously since they don't want to encourage it per se, but they also don't want to like push their child away. Now, this isn't the case for every family, of course, and as we know, attitudes have been changing over the years vastly. But there are still many families in this country that just have no idea how to handle news like this. And it could be they were raised to believe it is a sin. They were not, their social circle, their family circle, they were not around. They may not know any queer people at all. And, the only reference they have is from Queer Eye or something. Like, they really have a kind of skewed view of what it means to be gay or lesbian or any of that. And they just aren't really sure how to react or how to approach it. And there can be a lot of confusion with that, or even with parents who are just scared to death of their child now being more of a target and wanting to maybe stifle that a little bit.
Hang
And
on, I got a super chat coming in from Tayton. A lot of the domestic abuse in the LGBT community comes from their own relationships, totally trying to make this homo versus hetero narrative. Well, Tayton, I mean, you got to be careful with your wording there, because, like, even the way you've worded this, though, makes it seem as though abuse within their own relationships is something that's exclusive to the LGBT, which it's not. Like, heterosexual relationships have their own problems too, and so, I would agree with you that I think most domestic abuse comes from inside the relationship, but I think that that's true of straight people as much as it's true of LGBT people. And I know that's not what you meant, but like I'm just making that note that like if we're going to critique language, we need to be really careful with our language, you know what I'm saying? But this is another thing. It's like look at this slide. This doesn't have this, and I know. You don't need to apologize, bro. It's cool. It's cool. But like, look at this slide. Many parents feel conflicted when they learn their child is LGBTQ. Pinky swear, trust me, bro. Where's the stats? I want stats. I want numbers. Or are you just making this up to have something to present? Are you making this up to have something to present? I mean, that's really what it is.
And hoping that if we can just kind of change them a little bit, they'll be safer. It's mostly just a lot of misconceptions and assumptions that can happen with a family when a child comes out to them. So this is a chart from the Family Acceptance Project in 2009. So it's a little old, but I still think it gets the point home of youth who believe they can be a happy adults, openly queer adult. So 92% of them, for extremely accepting families, they believe they can grow to be a happy adult. For those who are very accepting, 77%. I mean, as you can see, as the percentage goes down, the hope in being able to grow into a happy, successful adult dwindles as your family acceptance dwindles. When your community, when those closest to you don't support you and actively try to change you, that brings your internal self-worth down and makes you doubt yourself and can be very difficult when you know yourself. No one knows you better than you, but you have
I
everyone around.
mean, can we be honest though and say that like do any of us really think we're going to be a happy adult when we're young? Honestly. Like again, this is one of those things that to me it's like okay, now ask the straight people. Because do you really think that being LGBT is the only thing that makes someone believe that they can't be a happy adult? No one likes being an adult. There's a whole word for it. It's called adulting. No one likes to adult. And trust me, if you're on the younger end, like I'm past 40 now, and trust me, man, you never grow up. You really don't. Or maybe it's just me. I don't know. But like I feel younger now than I did when I was in my 20s. Maybe it's just that I've run out of fucks to give and I don't care anymore. And I don't care about pretending to be this uber perfected, like perfect, like professional adult and like all, never swearing and never being an authentic version of myself and doing all this stuff. But like you never grow up. That's reality. You think when you're younger, you think that when you hit 40, you're gonna have it together and you're gonna understand and you're gonna like, be this thing that you see presented on TV. No, that never happens. And you either choose to play the role where the play the role that you think you should be playing, to like have all this like have like be perfectly buttoned up and wear this suit and tie. And by the way, no one really likes wearing a suit and tie or fancy clothes. I don't care what people say. No one likes getting dressed up for work. No one. The dream was and has always been that you get to stay home and be in sweatpants or dress down to go to work. No one likes getting dressed up to go to work. That's a pretense that we put on because we think we need to in order to be an adult. Do you know how many shoes I have in my closet that I bought not because I wanted them, not because they were the most comfortable thing, not because of any other reason other than I needed to have a professional image for the world? Back in the day, do you know how many fucking dresses I own? Do you guys know how many fucking pantsuits I own? I own a lot of fucking pantsuits. And they're all black. Except for maybe... I got a couple colorful jackets. I have an orange and white, like, chevron stripy jacket that's kind of cool. And yet I had to buy all that stuff because in my 20s, that was what I thought adults needed to be. You had to have pantsuits, you had to look professional, you had to wear fucking heels. I used to be a total girl, but I never really wanted to be. I had to be because I was like, you need to fit an image of what an adult is. And then I kept getting older and older and older. And then once I hit like, I started working for myself from home and like, I'm having to do that like 8 years ago. 8 years ago, something like that. So once I was in my mid-30s, I was like, deuces, it's sweatpants from here on forth. And even when I was going to do consulting work in organizations where I actually had to show up in person and give a presentation, jeans and t-shirt, man. And maybe if I needed to take the jacket off of one of those pantsuits and wear the nice jacket, I would do that. But like, no one wants to be an adult. No one. And the sooner, and I wish I had learned this in my 20s. Like, if I could go back and do my 20s over again, man, knowing what I know now, that you never grow up, it's always just an act, and you can do whatever the fuck you want, and as long as you structure your life in a certain way, you can pretty much get away with it. So if you're in your 20s now, and you're striving to be an adult, and you're striving to like do all the things that you see people do on Instagram or on TV or any of those other things, or on Netflix or whatever, just understand that you're going to reach a point in about, 15, 20 years when you're going to decide it's all bullshit and you're going to go right back to where you were and you will have wished you knew it in your 20s. You will have wished. I mean, am I wrong? I don't think I'm wrong. Peyton says, see, you're explaining performativity. Exactly. Professional performativity. Really, it's life, but they lie and say everything is performance based on capitalism. God, I wish I could go back and do my 20s over again. So much stuff I would have not worried about, and so much stuff I would have focused on instead. Man. Well, Jason, I've dressed like a slob for a really long time now, and I'm doing pretty okay. So I don't think. See, this is one of those things that people say to lie to other people to get them to do things they don't want to do. This is not true. Not true at all. I was getting paid like $8,000 to $10,000 for a speech to go show up in jeans and a t-shirt. True story. Got my first book deal based on one of those speeches. True story. Anyway, just do you. Don't fucking worry about it. No one likes being an adult.
Around you saying, well, you're wrong, and can cause second guessing, and then well, maybe I am wrong. Maybe it is something,
Yo, what a
and you
cool
start questioning
thing.
yourself, and
Good
that
for
can bring a
you.
lot of internal turmoil.
Good for
And
you.
then what hope do I have being successful if I can't even get it right now? If I can't even figure out myself now, what does that look like in the long term? And hope can be a very slim thing sometimes when your community doesn't even accept you, your family doesn't even accept you. So again, family acceptance is such a huge point of this, and through education and working with them, it is possible to make these numbers go up, so everyone feels like they can grow into be a happy, openly queer, successful adult. Oh, it went back for some reason. There we go. So if I can, coming out. So coming out is not a single action. It is a process of coming to terms with being queer and sharing one's identity with those you trust. I am constantly coming out every time I do this presentation. I am Two-Spirit. I use Two-Spirit as a sexual orientation and as gender identity.
How is it a
I
sexual
am always
orientation?
coming out to every new person I meet for the most
Means
part.
bisexual.
That will always be a thing. It is a lifelong process. There is no just sending out a blast group email, hey, everybody, I'm queer, and then you're good for the rest of your life. It is a constant thing. And with that comes a level of trust. I am trusting to share a piece of my identity with you and trusting that you will accept me for who I am and hoping you will accept me for who I am and understand as best to your ability. And that is how that exchange goes. So again, coming out is a sign of trust. There's a lot of factors that can affect the coming out process. I myself didn't even really put a solid label on it until I was about 22. I used to say I wasn't picky, which was like such a cop out, but it takes some time. It can take time. You can come out when you're 16, you can come out when you're 63. It takes time and it varies from person to person.
Hang on. Rottweiler says, when I became an adult, I left childish things aside, including the fear of being called childish. C.S. Lewis, people need to understand adulthood isn't the same for everyone. Let others be, period. I don't know, Rottweiler. I think my version of adulthood would work pretty well for everyone, but I suppose you're right. I shouldn't be a woke authoritarian and enforce my ideals of wearing sweatpants and leggings all day as on other people. Some people want to wear a 3-piece suit and be uncomfortable and restricted all day. And heels and all this stuff. Maybe you're right. Thanks for keeping me in check, Rottweiler. Appreciate it.
So there are definitely other reasons and many reasons why someone might be out in some spaces, but choose to stay closeted in others. Sharing information about somebody's LGBTQ identity without their permission is sometimes referred to as outing. This can be very harmful and should be avoided. Always check in with the youth or whoever on what they're comfortable with, but especially with the youth. It's not only a risk to their safety, but it can be and is a violation of trust. I am trusting y'all with this information of, hi, I'm Two Spirit. Thanks for listening. But especially when it comes to youth, this can be oftentimes the first time they're telling somebody. And we want to make that a positive experience and let them know that they are safe and this is a secure, stable place that they can be open about that. So setting the example, what's your pronouns? We can't know the pronouns of people just by looking at them. I go by they, them. You would not have guessed that probably because of the way our culture sees
I, in fact, would have
things.
guessed that.
Long
Yes.
hair, maybe a voice that's an octave or two higher normally. But there are many factors that we are raised with in order to identify that is a boy, that is a girl, and we're all raised to believe there are only two genders when really it's a wide, beautiful rainbow spectrum. So it's always best to just try and not assume and just ask. Gender neutral pronouns such as they, them, theirs, and there are others as well are grammatically correct and valid. It's okay to use they, them pronouns. It's encouraged.
It's
And it's grammatically
encouraged.
correct. Some people don't think it is. And like, why are you talking about
Why are we
multiple people?
encouraging it?
No. And in my case, I always say, yes, you are. I'm Two Spirits. So just use they, them. It works either way.
Okay, they,
But
them.
also what I like to say is I use they.
From now on, I really think this is a much better strategy than conservatives like digging in their heels and going like, if someone says my pronouns are like she, her, or like they, them or something, and they don't want to use the preferred pronouns and they dig in their heels, they're like, no, you're a man. I'm calling you he. That's not a good strategy. Do you know what a good strategy is? To use they, them every single time. Use both of them. Say, oh, my pronouns are they, them. Okay, every time you're referring to them, okay, they, them. Okay, they, them. Okay, they, them. Okay, they, them. That's a much better strategy because it's annoying and you're going to be expressing your disapproval with the idea that you have to use they, them. But at the same time, you're also being respectful and using the pronouns so they can't really say you're not. Be like, what? Like they could be like, you're misgendering me. No, I'm not. I'm calling you they, them, they, them. Like, I'm calling you they, them. You want it to be called they, them, right? Like, you told me my pronouns are they, them, so I'm calling you they, them. Like, so just like there are better ways to like annoy these people that aren't just like, I'm going to dig in my heels and use the pronouns that you don't like. No, do what they want, man. Do what they want. Just do it in a way that's just like twisted just a little bit where they know you're not buying into it, and there's nothing that they can do about it because you're playing along. But everyone knows you're just playing along. Yes, exactly. Yeah. They, them. How are you today? It's great to see you, they, them. Your red hair looks amazing, they, them. Yeah. It's nice to it's nice to meet you, he, they. Exactly. Let them hear how stupid they sound.
Until they say. So if I'm unaware of how someone identifies and I don't know their pronouns, then I refer to them as they, them until I can get confirmation from the person of what pronouns they use, until I get a chance to either ask them
See,
or just
they,
get
them is the
confirmation
default for
somewhere
them.
of what pronouns they use. Pronouns may shift or change as someone learns more about their own identity and themselves. I started out as she, her. I moved on to she, they, him. And now I am primarily they, them with a dash of him. It can change over
Primarily
time
they, them
and
with
can
a dash of
continuously
him.
change throughout one's life.
Wow.
So just always be open to that and understanding. It's never
Stunning
set
and
in
brave, they,
stone. Like
them.
most things
Stunning
with
and
our
brave.
identities, we can ebb and flow. Asking youth what their pronouns are and using them consistently and correctly is a great way to set the example. Be a resource. It's possible some youth will be learning about this for the first time, so make it a good learning opportunity for them. Provide resources, provide links or articles or videos or anything that you have for that may help. Really, just building up your repertoire of things that can be useful to others and also educational for yourself. I have a like a rainbow film list I made many moons ago now. But when my sibling came out, my sibling is 5 years younger than me. When my sibling came out, I gave them
Oh,
that list of movies and
their
documentaries and
sibling
said,
is also queer.
this is
What a
what I
coincidence.
learned, and this is what I found very helpful of queer history and just where we are. And I think this would be helpful for you. And they watched it and they found it was really great, and they wanted to know more. And I had some more resources at the time, but sharing resources among everybody, peers, youth, neighbors, whoever, being able to be a resource is a very important thing, and helps encourage others to be resources as well. Correct homophobic behavior you see, not just in front of you, or not just in front of the queer person who is in front of you. Consistently correcting folks who are being homophobic or transphobic. Um, Someone says, I don't get why he acts like that. Oh, actually, they use she, her. She uses she, her pronouns. Gently
I don't get
correcting
why she,
as
her
best you
acts like
can. But
that.
again, as part of setting the example and being a true ally is not just, being an ally when the camera's on you, consistently being an ally, being an accomplice in making sure that any homophobic behavior you see is not tolerated. Using inclusive language. Some folks don't like dude or bro. I'm from Southern California.
I will
It is
call everyone
practically
bro.
in every other sentence I say. It's a miracle I haven't said it now. But there are some folks who
I got in trouble the other day for in a Twitter space for I get in trouble all the time for calling people bro. And this is only something I've started in like recent years. This is not something I've done forever. I don't know where I picked this up, but I did like at some point, maybe about a year and a half ago, I just started calling everyone bro. I think it was when I was moving into my phase of like condescending to everyone on the internet because I realized that I was smarter than most people on the internet. And so I just started condescending to everyone and like being incredibly dismissive of everyone. And so when that happened, I just started calling everyone bro. And I do use dude and guys a lot too. But I got into a fight in a Twitter space the other day because I was calling this guy bro and he did not want me to call him bro, and he got all pissed off, and that just made me want to call him bro more. And it wasn't a gender thing. He was like only people who served with me can call me bro, and I was like, well, you're not censoring my speech, bro, so I'm very sorry, but you're just gonna have to manage. All right, guys, we got about 10 more minutes of this presentation. We have about 15 more minutes before our community Zoom. Now, if you want to join us for community Zoom today, head over to the Substack, which is carlin.substack.com. Find the Unwoke Roundup newsletter that I sent out yesterday. That will have your Zoom links in it. If you are a member on Locals, I will be posting over there so you can join as well. And we will be commencing with our community supporter call, which is a private unrecorded Zoom at 7 p.m. Eastern time. But today we're going to finish up this presentation first. Let's do it.
Don't feel comfortable with Dude Bro, and being able to be mindful of that. So when saying, instead of saying, hey guys, how's it going? It's like, hey folks, how are you? Howdy folks. Or hey everyone. There's just being more inclusive in that way can also help. Support youth who come out to you, again, being a resource and making sure that it's a positive situation for them, instead of being like, oh, I knew it, or just keep it calm and be a listening ear more than anything. Do your own research and educate yourself as you can. This is a great symbol you can have in your office, in your lobby. Many schools I've seen use this as well to let them know this is a safe place to be yourself. So connect with local Two-Spirit societies and Native communities in your area. Even just connecting with the local tribes in your area, is possible that they do have some sort of LGBTQ programming in their community, and building partnerships with that is great. Reach out to your tribal communities if you're in an urban setting. See what the Native community out there is up to. Oftentimes obviously there are Two-Spirit folks everywhere. You just gotta know how to find them. So connect with those communities wherever you are, urban or rural. Hit up the neighboring tribes, see what they're doing. And that, building those relationships is very important overall, especially when you're working with tribal youth or anything like that. Just building those communities and saying, hey, what do you got going as far as this demographic goes? And they can also give you more information on, again, because I said this identity can be very tribally specific. So different roles for different folks. So, hey, how does your community view Two-Spirit people? Like, what are your ways in that? And they can be a very good resource for that. There are also online communities, Facebook groups, websites, things of that nature. Attend cultural events, go to powwows. There are Two-Spirit powwows that are starting to pop up more
I
and
want to go to a
more.
Two-Spirit powwow.
And encourage inclusion.
I have Native American blood. I
Again,
really
being a
do.
resource,
I can
sharing
be Two-Spirit.
information, collaboration. We love it. It helps make sure people that are on the same page, and just builds a better, happier environment for everybody.
So I'm gonna tell you guys a quick story. So I really do actually have Native American blood. My mom always told me I had Native American blood, and I never really looked too far into it until I was doing one of those DNA tests. I did an ancestry.com DNA test 8 billion years ago, which I know means the government has all my DNA, but whatever, it was a mistake I made, can't take it back now. So I did an ancestry.com DNA test, and Victor did one too, and mine came back, and it was I knew that I had Native American blood from my mother's side, but my DNA test came back and it said not only was there no Native American blood, but there was a really large chunk from Africa. And this is something I had never heard before in the entire history of my family. I am English, French, and Irish with a dash of Native American, and that's it. Most of my relatives are from Ireland and France. Okay. And so I got these DNA results back, and the Irish and the French was in there, but it was this big chunk of DNA from Africa and no Native American blood. And I got to tell you, this bugged me out for about for at least a week, because I was like, my mother lied to me. Am I adopted? What the fuck is going on? What the fuck are these results? I was seriously bugging out about this. I was like, did my mother even have me? Am I adopted? And I just start, because this is something my mother would do. You guys don't understand. My mother is the type of person that would absolutely have adopted a child and then never tell the child they were adopted. So I had a whole identity crisis going on. I was like, who even am I? And then I got a letter from Ancestry.com telling me they fucked up my DNA results. songs. And I had this whole midlife crisis around like I was secretly adopted and no one ever told me. And so then I went and I did 23andMe, and I like 23andMe way better. I was like, I need like a second opinion on this. So I got my 23andMe DNA results and everything was just as it should be. So when in doubt, go with 23andMe and not Ancestry.com. Ancestry.com can eat a dick. 23andMe is way better. Yes, it does. I've actually had like people contact me that were like distant relatives, like long lost relatives saying I found you because of 23andMe. I actually kind of like 23andMe. You get some interesting information about yourself. Honestly, I think it's a good thing. And again, I understand all of my DNA results have already been cataloged by the government and all this stuff. I get it. I really do. But once you can't unring the bell, okay? And like once you ring the bell, you just might as well make do. And 23andMe actually has a lot of interesting stuff on their website. Anyway, let's finish up.
So this is a great example. This is from the Hero Project over at Cherokee Nation. They had this in their lobby for Pride Month, and this was a bunch of terms, LGBTQ terms, and so you could look at them, and then they have some signs and no bullying and all this beautiful stuff here. But for these, you could flip these up, and there's a QR code you can scan that gives you the definition of the term. So this was in their lobby. So if you're waiting to be seen, you can see all this and be like, oh, I wonder what that is, and scan it. And then takes you to a page where it tells you the definition and the definition of the other words as well. So I thought this was a really cool, creative way of doing some kind of community outreach, and also just like representation and being a visible source of information, and also just letting folks know that this is a safe place for people to be themselves. This is also some very beautiful posters from Northwest Area Indian Health Board and the Native Youth Sexual Health Network. These are some great stuff, and they both do amazing work for Two-Spirit folks. So remember, feeling uncomfortable is a necessary part of unlearning oppressive behaviors. Issues related to oppression are everyone's concern, not just the concern of those who are the targets of oppression. And making mistakes is part of learning. So instead of being like, oh, she said, oh, wait, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I meant they. Just I mean they meant to blah, 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 blah. Don't make it a big thing. Just correct yourself and move on. We all make mistakes. Acknowledge it, apologize, and move on and do better. The best apology is change behavior. And don't forget, humor is good medicine. Don't be afraid to share memes or, crack jokes. Like, humor is a good way that we can connect. And I know that, all of this was some very heavy stuff. Excuse me. But humor is good medicine. And don't be afraid to get in on the jokes. You'll learn more jokes as you go along. So yeah, humor is a good way to break the ice, and it's good for us. Laughing is very good for us. So here are some resources. I will see if there's a better way to get these out to y'all. But if you
I
want
want
to
to
take
watch that
screenshots at the moment,
Two-Spirit. I want to watch that
please feel
Two-Spirit
free.
video again.
This is just one page, but these are a lot of resources that are child welfare specific, but also tribal specific. There's all kinds of toolkits, and I have some YouTube videos as well. I have the Ingenuity Two-Spirit video there, and some other ones on the definition of Two-Spirit, and interviews with Two-Spirit folks. Also, the Los Angeles LGBT Center, Lambda Legal has a very good toolkit. National Center for Child Welfare Excellence. Here are some hotlines as well that are very useful. Trevor Lifeline, Trans Lifeline, Youth National Talk Line, Crisis Text Line. These are also very helpful. And again, I will see if there's a way I can get this out to the masses, if possible. And Sapa, thank you so much. I will
Thank you, Jack.
hand it off.
They, them.
Yeah, thank you again.
We appreciate you, Jack.
Thank you so much, Jack.
They,
That was
them.
awesome. We appreciate you again taking the time to join us today. There were a couple questions, and we are
Washington
running short
State
on time.
Department
So
of Children, Youth, and
before I
Families.
go to the questions, if you wanted to send that information to me, we can definitely get those resources out. I don't know
Okay,
if you're willing
4
to
more
share
minutes.
the PowerPoint or how you want to do that, but whatever information you're willing to share, you can send it to me and we'll make sure we get it put up on our OTR training page for folks. Okay, so one question was, where or when did the rainbow get chosen for recognition?
Oh, that's a good question.
So the rainbow dates back to, and it's been a minute since I've had to talk about the rainbow. At least I'm assuming that's for the LGBTQ community. That dates back to the 60s, around the Stonewall riots. It was created by somebody within the community, and each color had a different meaning, which unfortunately it escapes me. But that was, I would say, like mid 60s or so, around when Stonewall happened, was when the rainbow was adopted. And the rainbow flag was created and used as a sign of the movement, and had different virtues for each color and meanings. And yeah, I wish I had more details on that, but that's just something I don't get asked a lot. Sorry.
No problem. And the other one was, if you were interested in sharing that list, I'm not sure what list, but if you're interested in sharing it, you can send it and we'll make sure we get it sent out to everybody.
Yeah, I will share
Movie
that film
list.
list.
Oh, the movie list.
Yeah, I can share that film list. It's a lot of documentaries and also just classics in queer cinema. Some of the documentaries are a little bit outdated because at this time marriage equality was still an ongoing fight, and I was very much heavily involved and engrossed in that. But yeah, I can also add that to the email and make sure that we share that out for y'all.
Great. And then what are you, Jack, currently working?
Currently, my day job is not doing this type of work anymore, unfortunately. But outside of that, I am the current executive director of the Portland Two Spirit Society. I am also a part of the Uwu Collective, which is a queer trans POC DJ collective. We throw
A queer trans
safe parties
POC
for POC
DJ
specific groups
collective.
in the Portland area. I
Anytime you hear
also
collective, that
assist in
means
a
socialist.
all POC drag show here in Portland as well. I do drag, I DJ. I have also partnered with Howie Echo Hawk in doing the Indigiqueer parties in Seattle.
Indigiqueer! But
So there's a lot of things. I
Indigiqueer!
often come to Seattle for the Indigiqueer celebration. I've been doing that for about 2, maybe 3 years now. So I've been a part of the Indigiqueer Pride celebration down at the waterfront in Seattle. Yeah, so just in my
I
free
want to go
time
to
now, I've
Seattle
been
for
doing
the
this work.
Indigiqueer
I have since
celebration.
moved on to event coordinating in my day job, but I still try to do this kind of stuff when I can.
That's great. That's great. Awesome. Thank you so much. Any final questions for Jack?
No.
There's a lot of thank yous and kudos in the chat for you. So
All right.
again, we raise our hands to you.
We are done. We learned some stuff today. We all got high on that video. I want to watch that Two Spirit video again. If you missed the Two Spirit video at the beginning, that was definitely the peak of that presentation. Lots of stuff talking about how like non-binary was created by colonization, which means of course capitalism created non-binary, and of course again that was a taxpayer-funded talk from the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Huzzah! All right, guys, that's all we have for today. But I do want to remind everyone, if you want to support the work I'm doing and particularly fund a project, well, not necessarily a project, but fund an undercover journalism thing that I want to do in a couple of months, in which I'm going to go undercover at a gender ideology event and record everything and report back to you guys. But I can only do this with your help because it's going to cost about $3,000. And we didn't hit last month's goal in terms of funding because it was December. I get it, man. It's the holidays. I'm not trying to browbeat anyone. I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad. But the reality is that undercover journalism only gets funded when people choose to fund it. All right. And so I'm the only person going undercover at these events to report back about what's going on. I'm pretty sure I'm the only person in the country really doing this on a consistent basis now. If you know of someone else, please tell me because I would love to talk to them. And I genuinely do mean that. But if you want me going undercover at leftist events to show you what is happening, then please consider supporting the work I'm doing over on Substack. Pick up a founding membership, an annual membership, a monthly membership. You can also make a one-time gift through my Actively Unwoke website. You can find out more information about it in this article that I will pop into the chat. And we've got about 1 month to meet my funding goal, guys, which is I need about $3,000 in new memberships and stuff like that. That's to pay for my travel. That's to pay for my registration. That's to pay for my fake ID. That's to because I have to register a fake name. That's to pay for my food. That's to pay for my hotel. And so that's to pay for like my time away where I'm not going to be doing other work and stuff like that. It is actually significantly cheaper. So do you guys know how much Project Veritas used to pay for a story? Something like $125,000. Like mine are at $3,000 and we usually get several stories out of it. So yeah, I can get fake IDs. I'm not gonna say we're not gonna talk anymore about that. But I can only do this when you guys deem this work valuable. And so the way that I know you deem it valuable is to sign up as a supporter on my Substack. And if you can financially do this, I'm asking you to because I really want to go to this event. I cannot do this without you guys. I will now be joining my supporter call. Which, if you want to join the supporter call, what you want to do is go to the email, the Unwoke Roundup newsletter that I sent out yesterday. So head over to the Unwoke Roundup newsletter if you are a supporter on the Substack, or even if you're not. And how you find the Zoom link for the call that we're about to start is you scroll all the way down to the bottom. And underneath that red box, you will find Zoom links for this week's Zoom calls. You will find the supporter Discord link. You will find a 10% off code for the Unwoke Art merchandise store that you can use anytime you like. And so now I got to go get started on my supporter call. I'm already a minute late. Sorry, guys, for being late, but we're going to wrap it up now, guys. I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Take care. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.